When we manifested into this carnal nature, we were trying to gratify our lower selves. And we came here so that we could experience all of these walks of life, right? But what a lot of y'all are doing is you're trying to skip certain walks. See, because, this Mo over here, he might have had to go through it and actually learn this lesson. He had to risk something. And so he got the rewards, of the lesson behind that risk. And then when it talks about here, suffering, right? Let me see. Then he will stand untrampled on the plane of soul, where he must full complete his victories. Unnumbered foes will stand before man upon the plane of soul. These he must overcome, yea, overcome them every one. Thus hope will ever be his beacon light. There is no failure for the human soul, for Allah is leading on and victory is sure. Right? Backing up though, because I was talking about the suffering. Man will be fully saved, redeemed, perfected by the things he suffers on the plane of flesh. And I wanted to read that point, and on the plane of soul. When man has conquered carnal things, his garb of flesh will have then served his purpose well, and it will fall, will be no more. All right? One, I say that to say ain't nobody going to take you out before your time. Two, man will be fully saved, redeemed, and perfected by the things he suffers on this plane. Right? So I was talking about suffering. You got to actually go through something. Right? You got to have a risk. You got to have some risk on the table. If you claim that you're going to, get a reward, or you deserve something, you claim that you know something, you got to go through something to really know it. Because a lot of this stuff, and it talks about a conflict that can't be told in words. Let me back up. Let me back up. I'm gonna read this from the top. Perfected man must pass through all the ways of life. And so a carnal was full manifest, a nature that sprang forth from fleshy things. Without a foe, a soldier never knows his strength. 1 point. And thought must be developed by the exercise of strength. 2nd point. And so this carnal nature soon became a foe. Your lower self became your foe. Right? Some of y'all, your lower self is laziness. y'all got sinful laziness. In my opinion. That's just Nun Nagi commentary here. But anyway, and so this carnal nature soon became a foe that man must fight. All right? Most of y'all fighting with y'all self at the end of the day. You're not fighting with nothing externally. Y'all fighting internally. That he might be the strength of Allah made manifest. That's why you're going through the battle, so that you can be the strength of Allah made manifest. You might be the strength. Let every living thing stand and hear. Man is the Lord of all the plane of manifest, of protoplasm, of mineral, of plant, of beast. But he gave up his birthrights just to gratify his lower self. All right? A lot of y'all, we're in the problems that we're in because we gave up our birthrights to gratify our lower selves. That's what I was talking about. But man will regain his lost estate, his heritage. But he must do it in a conflict. Because a lot of y'all looking for an easy way out. And it's like y'all not really, embracing the conflict like y'all should. Y'all trying to run from it. It'll be, you'll get your heritage, you'll get your lost estate, but it'll be in a conflict that cannot be told in words. Moving on, it says, yea, he must suffer trials and temptations manifold. And a lot of y'all fall into those trials and temptations. I see it every day. And then y'all go back to sleep, and then y'all, when y'all pop back up, wanting some assistance, so y'all, skipping class playing hooky, and then y'all get in trouble. Y'all want somebody to come save y'all. And, unfortunately, you got to save yourself. Because you fell for that temptation. You went chasing after those gods of whom you knew not. Not me. and if I did, I caught myself. And if you do, you can catch yourself just like anybody else did. And stop falling for that nonsense. But anyway, I digress. Man will be fully saved, redeemed, perfected by the things he suffers on the plane of flesh. and on the plane of soul. When man has conquered carnal things, his garb of flesh will have then served his purpose well, and it will fall, will be no more. Quote, then he will stand untrampled on the plane of soul, where he must full complete his victories. Unnumbered foes will stand before him, man upon the plane of soul. These he must overcome, yea, overcome them every one. Thus hope will ever be his beacon light. There is no failure for the human soul, for Allah is leading on and victory is sure. Quote, man cannot die, the spirit man is one with Allah, and while Allah lives, man cannot die. When man has conquered every foe upon the plane of soul, the seed will have full opened out, will have unfolded in the holy breath. The garb of soul will then have served its purpose well, and man will need it nevermore, and it will pass and no more, and man will then attain unto the blessedness of perfectedness and at one with Allah. All right. So moving on, another principled and foretold demonstration that in its nature deals with recognizing diverse consciousness and motives can be viewed from the negative conditions caused by demo exploitation and warmongering criminals who have perfected the arts of deception. That's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with people, these warmongers and criminals who have perfected the art of deception, the arts of deception. An excerpt from the Septuaginta should be helpful. Septuaginta/Bible, the Second Coming. An anthropomorphic passage taken from the Septuaginta and adopted to the Bible foretells and presents prophetogenic warnings about the Roman unum sanctum hegemony practices that now plague humanity in these days. And let me just reiterate, I don't see any of these quote-unquote Bible scholars or the quote-unquote Hebrew Israelites talking about the Septuaginta or the Septuagint, which is really where the Bible comes from and where they adapted and adopted a lot of this information from. I don't really see a whole lot of y'all talk about that. Y'all talk about the Apocryphas. Y'all talk about these quote-unquote missing books, and I even broke it down with one of them and showed how the quote-unquote missing books that they claim are missing still ain't all the books that are missing. All right, the Apocryphas still ain't all the books that's not in the Bible. That's just some of the ones that people found and decided to put out there, for the rest of the people. But that still ain't all of them, because I went through a list and I named all these books, which I'll find it one day for another class, another class, another topic. But none of those books was in the list that they had, that they was claiming was a definitive list of all the books that was missing from the Bible. So for all those who think they got it, you got some more scholarship to do. Anyway, an anthropomorphic passage taken from the Septuaginta and adopted to the Bible, foretells and presents prophetic warnings, about the Roman unum sanctum hegemony practices that now plague the humanity in these days. All right, the following is reflective of that demo paradigm. The astrological/ephemerides projection known as prophecies expresses what has been commonly called the second coming of Christ, quote unquote. With that astrological projection in mind, we shall recall and review the ancient Hermetic principle and phenomena expressed in nature, quote, as above, so below. With that being said, let us also apply critical thinking and attend to other oral statements made by our prophet Noble Drew Ali. Quote, in the year 2000, the Moors will come into their own. Quote from Prophet Drew Ali. Mind you, all of these are from Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Moors, don't get rid of your Bibles, because I'm going to use them to condemn this government. The next one says, quote, I am going to leave the European here just long enough to teach you how to run a government. Next one says, watch the papers and listen to the radio. I'm going to make the Europeans tell the truth. And if you guys have been paying attention to the news lately, circa 2018, Christian calendar year, there has been a lot of truth revealing from the Europeans in the news. If I don't say so myself. And I mean, we could talk about some of them. You know, you had this ESPN meme. I think I reposted it on Facebook or whatever. But you had, you know, these NBA artists talking about how we wasn't all, you know, all of us ain't from Africa. You know, it basically was saying, you know, look at all four of us here. All of us didn't come from Africa. You know, some of us were here before 1492, and they, you know, put emphasis on 1492. All right, which, you know, any you know, Joe Blow off the street, 1492 is the year Columbus sailed the ocean blue, blah blah blah. 1492 is also the year that the Moorish Empire in Granada, Spain, Al-Andalusia, now known as Spain and Portugal, pardon me, fell. All right. And from that point, you know, the Moorish Empire receded in its wide expanse and covering over Europe, over, you know, Asia, as well as the Americas. And I would dare say, for those who don't know, that the Spanish Inquisition was nothing more than a continuation of the campaign against the Moors, the war campaigns. All right. So pause for the cause 1 second, and we're going to get into this. All right. And let me just pause for the cause and let you guys know, if you're thinking that this is about religion and you feel like I'm making a religious attack against you, it's not. I'm just attacking the stupidity that you call a thought. But anyway, we have to come to some conclusion on some things so that we can move forward. But, you know, if you guys want to debate and, you know, stir up more confusion and all of that, then y'all can do that on your own time. But for those who want to follow along, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 1 through 12, right? Precludes to the second coming. 1, we beseech you, brethren, by the coming of our Lord Jesus Yeshua, the Christ, and our being gathered together unto him. 2, not to be hastily shaken from your right mind, nor terrified, whether by spirit or by utterance, or by letter attributed to us, as though the day of the Lord were near at hand. Let no one deceive you in any way, for the day of the Lord will not come unless the apostasy comes first, and the man of sin is revealed, and the son of perdition, pardon me, and son of perdition, who opposes, verse 4, and is exalted above all that is called God, and that is worshipped, so that he sits in the temple of God. 5, do you not remember that when I was still with you, I used to tell you these things, and now you know what restrains him, that he may be revealed in his proper time. For the mystery of iniquity is already at work, provided only that he who is at present restraining it does still restrain, until he is gotten out of the way. 8, and then the wicked one will be revealed, whom the Lord Joshua, Jesus, will slay with the breath of his mouth, and will destroy with the brightness of his coming. And his coming is according to the working of Satan, with all power and signs and laying wonders, and with all wicked deception to those who are perishing. For they have not received the love of the truth, that they might be saved. Pardon me. Let me read that again. For they have not received the love of truth, that they might be saved. Therefore God sends them a misleading influence, that they may believe falsehood, that all may be judged who have not believed the truth, but have preferred wickedness. All right. And that's that's 2 Thessalonians, chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. All right. So moving forward, and if you're following along on page 4 of the prologue, with nature's law attending to balance and with justice guiding our rationale and our judgments, we consider the Romans/Europeans' unum sanctum and doctrine of discovery policies. The self-assigned yet false Roman quote-unquote claims of authority were and are founded in theft, despotism, and deception, and have fouled the peace of on earth. Their feudal methods and anti-humane forms of administrating government have disrupted the lives of many members of the human family. The current social, economic, and political toxins infecting society are indicative of the collective enforcement of their many Roman bullas. All right. These alien edicts particularly infects and negatively affects the peace and the harmony among the natural peoples of the land, the Asiatic nation. The noted discovery then concocted with the accompanying lechery as imposed upon humanity by the dark-skinned spirited, quote, council of priests, was born of the Romans' unjust hegemony practices. An honest notation of at least two major and injurious constructs are presented for your critical analysis. One of these constructs has been the obvious and blindly adopted passivity and tacit acquiescence tendencies evident among many of our misguided Moorish Americans, aboriginals. Another injurious construct has been a notable lack of knowledge among our people about our own ancient Moabite/Canaanite Moorish history. This state of affairs especially cripples especially cripples our people when such primal histories are not properly conjoined with jurisprudence and with the definitively associated traditions and customs viewed and confirmed within the accepted equations that loosely described and foresaid den and misprison born of Roman conquest operations has become a social and political norm, corrupting every aspect of life at North America. A lack of knowledge of or a denial of these historical, philosophical, and political facts does not relieve one from the effects of their realities and existence. Therefore, passivity among the natural peoples in relationship to these matters constitutes minor to extreme social, political, and economic debilities. Peripheral to these known historical and political corrupts consigned by European colonists are other likened, identifiable, and putrid prima facie constructs. Their fouling nature is unfortunately exacerbated due to the neglect-oriented inactions and passivity evident among too many of the natural people, the Moors. Mix these social political toxins with an absence of knowledge among our natural people, and the result is dead culture. This is disquietingly evident. These alien edicts particularly infects and negatively affects the peace and harmony among the natural peoples of the land, the Asiatic nation. The noted discovery then concocted with the accompanying lechery as imposed upon humanity by the dark-spirited council of priests was born of the Romans' unjust hegemony practices. An honest notation of at least two major and injurious constructs are presented for your critical analysis. One of these constructs has been the obvious and blindly adopted passivity and tacit acquiescence tendencies evident among many of our misguided Moorish Americans, aboriginals. Another injurious construct has been a notable lack of knowledge among our people about our ancient Moabite, Canaanite, Moorish history. This state of affairs especially cripples our people when such primal histories are not properly conjoined with jurisprudence and with the definitively associated traditions and customs viewed and confirmed with the accepted equations that loosely describe and foresaid den and misprison born of Roman conquest operations has become a social and political norm, corrupting every aspect of life at North America. A lack of knowledge of or a denial of these historical, philosophical, and political facts does not relieve one from the effects of their realities and existence. Therefore, passivity among the natural peoples in relationship to these matters constitutes minor to extreme social, political, and economic debilities. Peripheral to these known historical and political corrupts consigned by European colonists are other likened, identifiable, and putrid prima facie constructs. Their fouling nature is unfortunately exacerbated due to neglect-oriented inactions and passivity evident among too many of the natural people, the Moors. Mix these social political toxins with an absence of knowledge among our natural people, and the result is dead culture. This is disquietingly evident due to a lack of knowledge about their/our archaic Moabite/Moorish traditions and customs. One can easily deduce that there are obviously identifiable sources of the rot and decay that has manifested within our occupied Al-Moroccan American society in these days. much can be found wanting on both sides of the interfacing groups of people. Although it is clear that criminal exploitation and corrupt pseudo-government has much to do with the problems facing all of us, it is nevertheless a known and undeniable fact that much of this foresaid putridity has root in passivity and naive acceptance of on our parts, Moors. And what this is really getting to is that, the blade cuts both ways when you're talking about where we're at and why we're in the predicament we're in. And, while there's corruptions there's all these criminal activities happening on the European side, on our side, there's passivity and inactivity, all right, and a total blind ignorance as to what it is that this is and what's supposed to be going on. And that inactivity and ignorance creates a mindset of passivity amongst the people that further exacerbates the problem and makes it even worse than what it should be and could be. All right? The conjoined wars, historical and social and politically associated matters concerning the fall of the Moorish Empire is of primal interest for all of us and must be viewed from all possible and rational, quote, cause and effect aspects. For the sake of justice and for gravitating toward those principles which are ethical and right to do, to practice, or to have done, we active Moors agreeably seek to actuate remedies, corrections, and resolutions. And realize that Moors is plural. So it's not a one-man job. All right? This isn't a stand on the sideline and let's see what the other Moors come up with kind of thing. This is a you have to put your hands in the dirt and get dirty kind of thing. You got to have some experience with this, meaning you got to suffer something. You got to go through something to know what this really is. It's not just going to be handed to you or told, because man knows not by being told. But if you all was reading this, you probably would have came to this conclusion over a year ago, and what I'm talking about is just old news to you. Anyway, I digress. Intelligence, logic, and logistics encourages us to go back to that state of mind of our ancient mothers and fathers, that we Moors may review ourselves and note the many cause and effect, acts and deeds, etc., which have manifested or borne the fruits of life that we are dealing with in these present days. We must acknowledge the positives and the negatives that brought about the fall, and measure with justice and with right those honorable and unbiased directives, adjustments, and changes that must be made or responsibly initiated or done on our part. All right? And this is kind of that part that the Prophet was talking about, being forced to make changes. And again, this has been out for over 6 months, and I don't see too many changes that have been made. But I digress. Indisputably, there have been and now are many vital social, economic, and political issues which have been and are in need of being addressed, particularly at Northwest Amexem / North America. As formidable as some of our problems may be, the greater of them nevertheless must not suffer, to be continuously ignored or neglected. We shall particularly make note of some of the particular and associated events, acts, and chronologies post 1492 to date 1992 plus. We Moors must all remember the destructive warring acts of the Roman Council of Priests and their issuance of and institutionalization of Pope Boniface's Romantis Pontifex, quote unquote. The Romans' unum sanctum self-anointed God claims and their arrogant self-righteous propagation practices are found to be blatantly fraudulent. Nevertheless, many other Roman bullas and edicts have been and are presently imposed upon Moors, An honest evaluation and examination of these forementioned Roman bullas, including other bulla derivatives such as the Christian black codes, quote unquote, will definitively prove and demonstrate that these bullas were actually criminality tools. They were actually invoked as vainly justified means for rationalizing destruction of human life and for theft. Extreme evils were committed, yet these atrocities were falsely and with deviance guised as and misrepresented as exercises born of spiritual right and divine authority. And we're really digging at the heart of the Klan, all these claims by Europeans under the doctrine of discovery, all these claims that they make about, ratification and everything. You have to have authority to ratify something. You can't ratify something under the color of authority. And I had somebody in the comments, because y'all Moors out of ignorance are getting railroaded by these Europeans out of ignorance, who are saying ignorant shit that does not apply, that does not change the fact that you're Moorish American and they're foreigners operating, doing illegal business on your vast estate. Trying to adjudicate, trying to claim that they got courts and everything, and y'all keep falling for this dumb shit and keep getting locked up and captured because you're ignorant. And then y'all are contacting the Consular Court, or y'all contacting the Regency, expecting us to undo what you have ignorantly created for yourself. All right? And then you want to throw the baby out with the bathwater and say that you don't want to use the treaty, you don't use the Constitution, and you want to try to find something else to use to try to have a saving grace. And we already went through the one-on-ones and reiterated the fact that it was going to come from Allah, your saving grace, and through the power of the prophet, what the prophet already laid down. And the prophet gave you the Circle 7 and the one-on-ones and said, take this, and I've given you everything it takes to save a nation. Take this and go save yourselves. But hard heads think it's going to come from something. Still waiting for something to fall out the sky. And then you got dirty temple Moors or whatever who's not really, they're not really iterating this to the public. They're not really iterating this to their congregations, right? To their flock, because they want them to remain a flock of sheeple, to follow them and to pay their dues to them, so they can go buy a new Cadillac or something. But I digress. Next section, moving on from page 5, the fall of the Red House. All right. The year 1492 is the designated timeline given and associated with the fall of the Moors' Red House, Alhambra, at Granada and Andalusia. Andalusia was later called Spain. The defeat of the Moors' palace was a major blow to the integrity of our allodial estates. This is what I was talking about before. Our allodial state status. And that fall neutered the Moorish Caliphate's capacities to maintain rulership over our own lands, estates, and hereditaments. Not only at Granada, but also at Seville and at other highly developed territories in Europe once ruled by our Moorish forefathers and foremothers. The Asiatic world has since been beset with the extreme and inhumane inquisition practices initiated by the feudal lords of Rome. Escheating estates, tortures, and other forms of extort have since been instituted and enforced, with the same firmly and customarily associated with the destructive and negating demo works of the Romans' familiars. All right? Supporting inspiration from our prophet Nabi. I am not just a prophet, I am also a general. Quote, and these are all, again, quotes from and excerpts from Noble Drew Ali, Prophet Noble Drew Ali. When the Moors ruled Spain, we had streetlights in Seville. We had streetlights in Seville, Spain, 400 years before they had them anywhere else in Europe. Next one says, the Moors once ruled the world. Now get ready to rule it again. But this time it's going to be under love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Next, the greatest weapon in the hands of our group today in America is our press. The truth will never be told about a disadvantaged minority by the general press of any country, whether that minority be racial, political, or religious. Unless we express ourselves through our papers of our own, the truth about us will not be told. Our papers are our only hope of shoveling ourselves out from under the avalanche of lies that are annually let loose upon us. A strong free press is the best possible safeguard of the liberties in general promotion and defense of our interests of a strong free people. Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Now, let me just pause on that and let you guys know we now have available the Moorish First Eye Press on the site for FredsProvinceRegency.org. So if you guys want to check it out, you know, just go there, check it out, look at it, share it. It'll give you some info. The first one is just, you know, just kind of an intro and giving some answers to a lot of questions we were getting in the emails. But going forward, we are inviting you guys, you, the viewers, to send in your articles, all right, for submission, and we'll go through and edit them and whatnot. And you know, your writing may be a part of the next upcoming issue, all right. So at the end of the day, if the newsletter looks a little skimp, it's because you are not participating, all right. If it looks like that the newsletter isn't, you know, quite covering what it needs to be covering, it's because you're not participating, all right. Not because Nun Nagi isn't doing what he can to try to, you know, get it out there, or not because anybody else isn't doing their part. You got to participate because it's your newsletter, all right. And I'm telling y'all this up front so that y'all know. And I don't hear a bunch of, you know, random dumbass comments about what happened to the newsletter and everything. Where, you know, where's the content for the newsletter? You got to participate, bruh. Get up off your ass. Do some work. Break a sweat. And I'm just gonna leave it there for now. You know, don't embarrass yourself asking when you can participate. Asking about something that you have a right and a means to participate in. All right. Anyway, moving on. The coup d'etat of 1861, we're at the middle of page 6 here. The coup d'etat of 1861 was a primal aspect of a series of seditious acts that were initiated to establish the private yet publicly debilitating political platform now operating in North America post-1861. That platform is a privately owned kingship oligarchy, which has publicly been called the U.S. democracy. The past has much to do with the present. And as we all know, cause brings about a reason for effect. An action, a motive, a condition, or a combination of any or all of the above stated responses or actions. So let us cut to the chase and present an update on current Moorish affairs. All right. We Moors of the Northwest in particular have come to know and to experience, and this is more so, this next part is really going to answer all those questions about Consular Court. All right. So for everybody that chose, for whatever reason, to ignore the prologue and not to read it because they thought that, you know, they was going to get it through osmosis. All right. Here you go. We, the Moors of Northwest, in particular, have come to know and to experience the nefarious and toxic nature of the trust-breaching Europeans' feudal law impositions, their artful and identity-stealing impersonation practices, and their colonial occupational exploitation, hypothecation, and vampirism impositions. We have also endured the unfortunate and yet prolific learning experience of being misgoverned and misdirected under European/Roman unum sanctum policies and their, quote, secret treaty of Verona, subversions, and colonial occupation. A prime aspect of that said misprision and maladministration of government at Northwest had its empowerment rooted in the deviant and dishonorable United States Congress coup d'etat of 1861. With the aim and intent of institutionalizing forced servitude, the coup was born. That questionable and rogue body of congressmen for the United States, in collusion with other European foreign interests, secretly plotted and did overthrew the Republic order of government, as was established and commanded by the Organic Constitution for the United States of America. See Article 4, Section 4. All right. Moving on, next paragraph. The outcome of the wayward Congress's criminality resulted in the designed negation of the liberties of the natural peoples and the establishment of what has come to be known as their private, though falsely deemed as public, U.S. democracy. That imposter and corrupt demo political platform entity has as its core purpose the enforcement of color of authority and a multi-tiered format of private extortion agencies exercising a color of office. All right. So for this point, just keep in mind, it's levels to this. All right. Multifarious, anti-humane methods were weaved within its demo-structured operations and with the same deemed to enforce its owner's de facto posture thereafter. By way of a color of law, the demo platform was and is now imposed upon the natural peoples of the land under the guise of being legitimate government. All right? So when we're talking about color of law, color of authority, it's all done under the guise of being a legitimate government. Some of the questions you guys have indicate that you still think that the government is legitimate in some way, shape, or form. When in fact, they're proving, based on your question and based on your experiences, that they are not legitimate. All right? But moving on, I'll just move on. I don't want to digress too hard. A capstone and usurping manifest of this said demo misprision was sealed by secret via the corporate enrolled Congress for the United States with their colorable and de facto legislation called the Act of Congress 1871. This act was the culmination of the coup of 1861, wherein the former Congress for the United States concluded their private self-serving kingship oligarchy. Let me just pause right quick. All right, and we're back. Thereafter, we're still on page 7 here. A clear distinction was made between that which was originally de jure having been supplanted with that which is de facto. Thus, the organic constitution and its republican form of government were suppressed. Herein, we can identify diametric opposition. Thereafter, the private, for-profit, human trafficking and Inquisition wars operations rooted in the U.S. democracy political platform was promoted and proselytized. All right, and that's why even today they still talking about democracy, you know, and the threats of democracy. But you know, if you're really paying attention, Trump is talking about restoring the republic. All right. Oddly enough, you know, without getting into too much details or whatever, you really just got to pay attention to the details. Yeah. We dealing with a democracy, U.S. democracy. They promoted themselves and they're solidifying themselves and trying to double down on their illusion. And right now we're at the precipice or the beginning of a lot of things. All right, and we're at the beginning of a lot of some new cycles of some new energy. But if people are not careful, they're gonna look up, and when this next economic crash comes, which they are gonna manufacture and crash the system again at some point, people are gonna be left, holding the bill of sale, thinking that they got a bill of goods, and then they're gonna wonder why foreigners are coming in taking in all that, taking all this shit. It's because you were ignorant enough to go by what somebody said rather than looking it up for yourself. Don't go by what Nun Nagi says. Don't go by what Taj say. Don't go by what you read in the news or something. Go by what you went and researched and studied for yourself. All right. Calling and asking for step-by-step directions is not studying. That's cheating yourself. And I can give you the answer, but you're still not gonna know nothing. All right. So do yourself a favor and do it right the first time instead of trying to cheat and skip and get your answers from somebody else. All right. But moving forward, where were we? These social, political, and economic misprisons, including other very destabilizing and exploitative experiences, were born of European occupation of Morocco, and should be viewed with intelligence, with insight, and with honesty. Reflecting upon these foresaid experiences should be accompanied with intentions, actions, and considerations that should appeal to the higher moral, ethical, and positive attributes and customs inculcated into government structures by which we Moors, descendants of the ancient Moabites, have been known capable of achieving and instituting for the betterment of humanity. Why and how, question mark, the true and revealed history of jurisprudence and governmental practices has shown throughout the history of the Moors, without a doubt, a proven track record demonstrating the same. Another excellent character building tool of philosophical instruction can be found within the study and application of the symbolic meaning of the carpenter's tools as prescribed in chapter 5 of the Holy Quran, circle 7. A candidate for juror will find this chapter very useful because the lessons imparted therein are harmonic with the desired character of a man or woman who holds a position of consul. In the course of human affairs, we often refer to our desired intent of having people of good character to represent our intentions as far as government is concerned. We are aware of our own faults and shortcomings, and as a general rule of doing unto others as we would have them do unto us, we strive for maintaining good character in our intersocial affairs. Character, in this instance, we refer to the positive and commendable traits that have been known to be practiced and maintained among peoples and cultures. We direct our attention to such complex traits of mental and ethical distinctions that mark a person, a group, or a nation, etc. Chapter 5 of the Holy Quran, circle 7, should prove to be of particular ancillary use. All right, and we're back. So, chapter 5, after the feast of the homeward journey, the missing Jesus, the search for him, his parents find him in the temple. He goes with them to Nazareth, symbolic meaning of carpenter's tools, right? So, Surah 1, chapter 5, Holy Quran, circle 7. And I'm on page 7 if you're following along on the prologue. It says, the great feast of the Pasch was ended, and the Nazarenes were journeying toward their homes. And they were in Samaria, and Mary said, quote, where is my son? No one had seen the boy. Surah 3, and Joseph sought among their kindred who were on their way to Galilee, but they had seen him not. 4, then Joseph, Mary, and a son of Zebedee returned and sought through all Jerusalem, but they could find him not. 5, and Mary asked the guards, had they seen Jesus, a little boy about 12 years old? 6, the guards replied, yes, he is in the temple now, disputing with the doctors of the law. 7, and they went in and found him as the guards had said. 8, and Mary said, quote, why, Jesus, why do you treat your parents thus? Lo, we have sought 2 days for you. We feared that some great harm had overtaken you. 9, and Jesus said, do you not know that I must be about my Father's work? 10, but he went round and pressed the hand of every doctor of the law and said, quote, I trust that we meet again. 11, and then he went forth with his parents on their way to Nazareth, and when they reached their home, he wrought with Joseph as a carpenter, or worked. 12, one day as he was bringing forth the tools for work, he said. 13, these tools remind me of the ones we handle in the workshop of the mind, where things are made of thought and where we build up character. 14, we use the square to measure all our lines, to straighten out the crooked places of the way, and make the corners of our conduct square. We use the compass to draw circles around our passions and desires, to keep them in the bounds of righteousness. 16, we use the axe to cut away the knotty, useless, and ungainly parts, and make the character symmetrical. 17, we use the hammer to drive home the truth, and pound it in until it is a part of every part. 18, we use the plane to smooth the rough, uneven surfaces of joint and block and board to go to build the temple for the truth. 19, the chisel, line, the plummet, and the saw all have their uses in the workshop of the mind. And then this ladder, with its trinity of steps, faith, hope, and love, on it we climb up to the dome of purity in life. And on the 12-step ladder, we ascend until we reach the pinnacle of that which life is spent to build, the temple of perfected man. All right. So, moving forward, or to kind of give some brief commentary to this, there are certain tools that exist within the workshop of the mind that have to be utilized. All right. You have to use these tools to get results. If you're not using them, then they're going to get rusty, or they're going to, wear down and break down, and then they're not going to be any use the next time you try to pick them up to use them. The same thing goes for your thoughts. All right. And your concepts about what more science is. The same thing goes for your writs. And anything else that you're doing. If you don't practice, if you don't work at something, you're not going to get any better at it. You're just going to be just as sorry as you was when you started. And then you're going to keep getting them same sorry results. And those same roadblocks that you get. But anyway, moving on, page 8, Foreign Relations and Intercourse. Chapter 22, USC, Chapter 2, Consular Courts, subsections 141 to 143. Again, if you guys are reading, you would have already known this. You would have already picked up on what was going on, and wouldn't be asking a whole bunch of dumb questions online. I just really wish y'all would pay attention and just read. Like, y'all make stuff so much easier on y'all self, because y'all ain't making it difficult for me. I know what I read and I know what we wrote. Currently, and in this instance, and in our meeting, Majlis assembled April 15th plus of 2017, we, the present members of the Order of the Great Seal, are deemed to act constructively concerning the often neglected diversity acknowledgement issues. Some of these issues include, but are not limited to, the following. A. Awakening our nationally unconscious people to recognizing their responsibilities to their own nationality and bloodline. Part 1 is part of what we're doing here, B, restoring their rightful operative dispensations and acknowledgments of proper sanguineous nationality cards and identification, distinguished from the forced private, for-profit, feudal law, corporate fee constructs. Among these are the misrepresented corporate privilege, driver's licenses, etc. These and other demo instruments have been falsely imposed upon the natural peoples of the land and are colorably guised as identification cards. And just so you guys know, the Regency now offers national identification cards for 35 notes, as well as right to travel identification cards for the same price, or the same donation rather. C, restoration and proper lawful due process, restoring the rightful operative dispensations. This is B, and acknowledgments of proper sanguineous nationality cards of identification, which we now have identification cards as well as right to travel cards for 35 through the site, 35 notes, 35 note donation. Anyway, distinguished from the forced private, for-profit, feudal law, corporate fee constructs. Among these are the misrepresented corporate privilege, driver's licenses, etc. These and other demo instruments have been falsely imposed upon the natural peoples of the land and are colorably guised as identification cards. C, restoration of proper and lawful, quote, due process under organic constitutional law principles and operations whenever an intersocial controversy or law issue arises. This is to be the restored process and standing for all peoples in society. Islam. Moving on to section about diversity. Diversity is essentially the condition of something or someone being different, or an instance where something such as placement, order, properness, or jurisdiction, etc. is established. In assumed claim in lawful or legal procedures, diversity as noted would apply in matters of controversies where an assumed claim of jurisdiction not warranted and not competent or correct would be pointed out for purposes of correction or for rightful procedure. As an example, diversity of citizenship is a law phrase that is applied with reference to the jurisdiction of the federal courts which under the Constitution for the United States set at Article 3, subsection 2, extends to cases between, pay attention y'all, between citizens of different states, designating the condition existing when the party on one side of a lawsuit or controversy is a citizen of one state, and the party on the other side of the lawsuit or controversy is a citizen of another state. Logically, the fundamental and primarily important issue of jurisdiction arises. All right, and you know, really, let's back up for a second. Let's talk about definitions. Let's get some definitions in. State. All right. And of course, I'm in Black's Law 4th edition right now. And I might have to edit this part out here. Oh, no. Here we go. Statutes. So state, we're looking for the state noun, right? The part of speech that's a noun. All right, we're still good on time. A people permanently occupying a fixed territory bound together by common law, habits, and custom into one body, political or one body politic exercising through the medium of an organized government, independent sovereignty and control over all persons and things within its boundaries, capable of making war and peace, and of entering into international relations with other communities of the globe. Right? So it goes on to say the organization of social life which exercises sovereign power in behalf of the people. All right, so the state is what operates on behalf of the people. One of the component commonwealths or states of the United States of America, the term is sometimes applied to the governmental agencies authorized by state, such as municipal corporations. See, and that's a part of the issue, because municipal corporations are municipal corporations. They're not states. All right, they're municipalities or private, part of private oligarchies. But it tells you right there that they, on the color will recognize a municipality as the state. So keep that in mind, because a lot of times y'all not dealing with the state, y'all dealing with a municipality, or y'all are dealing with a county. All right, we moving forward. So page 9 here, using common sense and recognizing common law, one can reasonably comprehend that in criminal pleadings before a court of competent jurisdiction or any tribunal platform where the rights, the property, or the liberties of a party are involved or which are in question, that due process is secured and protected by the established law of the land. And so as diversity holds in criminal pleadings, as example, a plea entered by a prisoner in bar of execution, alleging that he or she is not the same who was attainted, upon which a jury is immediately impaneled to try the collateral issue thus raised by force of law, recognizing and acknowledging the identity of the person and not whether he or she is guilty or not. As we all know, common knowledge of and open discussions on the subject of diversity at North America is deliberately suppressed, minimized, and or diverted into dysfunctional 14th Amendment and de facto jargon. All right. Being a prime status issue and as a natural political and international law fact, diversity, quote unquote, is and should be elemental in our responses to international relations and intercourse. Among the many active Moors of Northwest Amexem, we are called upon to address the important issue of restoring consular courts and their related and associated diversity functions at Northwest Amexem / Northwest Africa / North America / the North Gate. All right. You cannot talk about consular courts and ignore the issue of diversity. They go hand in hand. All right. Much of this de jure juristic necessity has to do with the fact that the organic constitution covenant established for preserving equity of and in government at Northwest Morocco, quote, the North Gate, has been unduly compromised by an entrenched criminal and misprison oriented body politic. All right? As conditionally required, we active Moors of the Order of the Great Seal are well aware of the fact that our illustrious prophet, Sheikh Sharif Abdul Ali, Noble Drew Ali, firmly and authoritatively commanded the loyal and faithful Moors to help him in his great missionary work of helping to bring his/our Moorish American people back into the constitutional fold of government. All right? And this is where a lot of folks who've been passive with the Consular Court, this is where the rubber meets the road in terms of your treasonous activity and your passivity. All right? We've been charged to bring the people back to the constitutional fold of government. You ignoring the Consular Court and not properly teaching on this, or you guessing about the Consular Court and talking out the side of your neck and leading people astray with your confusion, is not getting people back to the constitutional fold of government. It's keeping them confused and suppressing the topic. You're not bringing up diversity in the Consular Court in the manner that it would lead anybody to any logical conclusions as to what they are supposed to be doing and what their responsibility as Moorish Americans is or are to the nation as a whole. All right? Much less if you want to find any personal remedy with anything. But I digress. Keep in mind at all times that the prophets dedicated work centered around, let me back up, to assist us in our directives, we shall review and analyze an excerpt from a prime document set forth by the Prophet Noble Drew Ali for all Moorish Americans. Keep in mind at all times the Prophet's dedicated work centered around rights, maxims, acts, and those likened things which promote the restoration of our lost estate. A divine warning by the Prophet for the nations is one of the prime sources of documentation that demonstrates the social and political philosophies and standing of those who maintain an affirmative and loyal position with the Moorish Divine and National Movement as founded by the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. This historical document is a major and focused directive which is to be examined, analyzed, and acted upon by all credible loyal Moorish Americans. An excerpt from Prophet Noble Drew Ali's divine warning is a quote as follows. A divine warning by the Prophet for the nations. Money does not make the man. It is free national standards and power that makes a man and a nation. The wealth of all national governments, gold and silver, and commerce belong to the citizens alone. And without your national citizenship by name and principles, you have no true wealth. And I am hereby calling on all true citizens that stand for a national free government and the enforcement of the Constitution to help me in my great missionary work, because I need all support from all true American citizens of the United States of America. Help me to save my people who have fallen from the constitutional laws of government. I am depending on your support to get them back to the constitutional fold again, that they will learn to love instead of hate and will live according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, supporting our national Constitution of the United States of America. Prophet Noble Drew Ali. All right. There are other major and focused directives and instructions moving on, issued to all Moorish Americans and coming forth from the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. These and other uplifting indicators likewise should serve us well and inspire us in our continuing work. Quote, children, you are at home and the European is 3,000 miles from home, and he is going to have to take some water. He's going to take some water. Prophet Noble Drew Ali. These are more quotes that we're making here. There are going to be new Moors that are going to come in with their eyes wide open, seeing and knowing, that are going to take you old Moors, seat you in the back, and carry out my law. Next one. I had to go around my elbow to get to my thumb to get what I wanted out of this government. All right. Next one. All nations will turn against the United States one day. Islam. The next one. The half has not been told. If I told you everything, you would go back to sleep. All right. So moving forward, let me just pause this. So we're back. page 10 at the top here. As our illustrious prophet said, quote, reflection is the business of man. Any honest or dedicated Moorish American or historian possessing even a minor degree of integrity cannot deny that the researchable and reasonable principles embodied within the fundamental rules of law as found within the organic constitution for the United States at North America are at the heart of the Moorish Divine and National Movement. Logically, any and all associated activities, groups, and organizations rooted in these activities or studies of or inspired by this great humanitarian movement founded by Prophet Noble Drew Ali must inevitably reflect the same, especially if any such orders or organizations stay true to the identifiable cause upon which the original humanitarian Moorish order was founded. And now, since we are still under occupation, we consider our Moorish affairs. We active Moors convene again via the order of the Great Seal, quote unquote, to take on the ongoing responsibilities of enforcing our Constitution covenant derived from Muslim law and deemed for governance at Northwest Amexem / North America for the United States of America. The subject matter placed before us and that we are charged to address at this time is Consular Courts. So we're still on page 10 here. So moving on to this section, Consular Courts. Consular Courts are held by the consuls of one nation or country within the territorial jurisdiction of another nation or country and established under the authority of a treaty for settlement of civil cases. In some instances or cases, Consular Court also have and exercise a criminal jurisdiction. In respect to criminal cases, however, the home country / nation / government by territorial right maintains the right of review in such cases by its courts. Among civilized governments, a consul acts as a, quote, chief executive magistrate. Islam. Next point that we're trying to address, or that we addressed already at the prologue, that people didn't want to read and ignored, and then wondering what happened to the Consular Court. United States Corporation Company, U.S. relinquished jurisdiction in Morocco. One day, or on day 1 of August 19th, in 1956, the occupying European United States Corporation President and the Board of Directors of the United States Corporation Company, calling themselves Congress of their private U.S. Corporation, relinquished jurisdiction in Morocco. This abandonment of jurisdiction was effected via the private and feigned as public administration of the private U.S. Corporation, and with the said relinquishment having been recorded and repealed via subsection 141 through 143, subsection 143, in reference to Consular Court in Morocco. The same is noted in Chapter 807, Statute 744. One must therefore remember and know the heretofore suppressed fact that Northwest Amexem is the heartland of the Moroccan Empire, and that Northwest Amexem / Northwest Africa is North America, the North Gate. If you knew everything, then you would have already put 2 and 2 together. You would have already figured this out. The relinquishment of Consular Court, 1956. The German, Dutch, European Dwight D. Eisenhower, Commander-in-Chief of the United States / Roman branch of the Inquisition Trinity, exercised the executive power vested in the seat of the Praetor / President of the occupying United States Corporation Company, a company originally established in France, 1754 by the European Benjamin Franklin. Eisenhower invoked the powers vested in his position and relinquished jurisdiction in Morocco via memorandum issued by himself on the 15th day of September of 1956. Thereafter, all pending Consular Court cases were disposed of by the year 1960. Reference is made to the same by a bulletin of the State Department posted in volume 35.905 on page 844. All right. A notation on contracts, covenants, and agreements. In the rules that govern contractual or covenant agreements, an obligee or obligees, being several or joint, designates a person or persons in favor of whom some stated obligation is contracted. Whether the said obligation be to pay money or that the said obligation is binding, the person or party to such persons to do or not to do something established by the said contracts or covenant. if or when an obligee to a said contract or trusteeship or to a covenant abandons, breaches, or relinquishes his or her or their obligations, trusteeship, or commitments related to the said contract or covenant, the party thereafter stands null and void of any rights, jurisdiction, or powers, or benefits associated with or emanating from the contract or covenant in question. All right, so be very, very careful who you're assigning as trustees. All right, because sometimes y'all are, you're taking stuff from certain lessons, and understandable, it's out there, but you got to qualify. All right, you can't just assign them without any limitation to the power, because otherwise they're going to assume that they've been assigned without limitation and that they have unlimited powers. So you have to be, all law specific. You got to be very specific in the words that you use. Yeah, some of y'all are using the right words, but you're not qualifying what you're saying. And that lack of qualification is a gray area that you're creating, that they're using to abuse you or deny your writs to further continue the abuse. But I digress. If a party to a contract or a covenant, pay attention. Y'all really need to pay attention to this paragraph. If a party to a contract or a covenant takes upon himself, herself, or themselves to breach or to relinquish his or her or their obligations, or to abandon their standing or position in such agreements, the party in relinquishment no longer wields any jurisdiction or authority in the matter set forth by the said contract or covenants. All right? To relinquish means to withdraw or to retreat from, to leave or to leave behind, to resign, to yield, to abandon, to withdraw, to retreat, to give up title to, or to stop holding physically, etc. Therefore, in the matters of any authoritative or jurisdictional claims previously assumed, presumed, or established by the owners or representatives of the United States Corporation Company, were declared null, void, and extinguished. Therefore, Dwight D. Eisenhower, President of the United States Corporation, relinquished political and occupational jurisdiction at North America / Morocco. Such a demonstrated action constitutes abdication. All right. Therefore, in the matters of foreign relations and intercourse, the German / Dutchman Dwight D. Eisenhower, President of the United States Corporation Company, serving from 1953 until 1961, executed the following. All right. We're going to keep reading. Dwight D. Eisenhower repealed and relinquished Foreign Relations and Intercourse, Section 141. Right? And I'll let you guys read the rest of this. But it's sections 141, 142, 143. All right. In light of the German Dutchman Dwight D. Eisenhower's actions relinquishing jurisdiction at Morocco / the North Gate, it should become clear to active and conscious Moorish Americans as to the prepared wisdom of the Prophet Noble Drew Ali in his constructing and presenting to the active Moorish Americans the divine warning by the Prophet for the nations and the divine constitution and bylaws. Clearly, the Moors were and are being prepared for exercising self-government again at the North Gate. Act 1 of the divine constitution and bylaws presents unquestionable evidence of Regency preparatory restorations by way of the Moorish Divine and National Movement of North America. All right, next topic that we're going to cover here, or that we already covered in the prologue that you guys did not want to read. Breach of trust. When exercising the social duties in society, one is required to know, to support, and to enforce the fundamental isonomy rules and laws set forth for the peace and harmonies of the grand body politic of the natural people. These standards are commonly expressed via a written constitution and / or a treaty covenant. A breach of trust is any act that is done by a trustee which is contrary to his or her delegated terms of the said trust, and that is done or executed in excess of his or her authority and to the detriment of his or her trust. This would include any wrongful omission committed by a trustee or any act required of him or by or her by the terms so stated in the trust. A breach also includes any misappropriation by a trustee of any funds or properties which have been lawfully committed to him or to her in a fiduciary character. And so we measure by the foresaid the related standards associated with a breach of duty. A quote-unquote breach of duty is, in a general sense, any violation, or omission of a legal or moral duty. More particularly, we note or examine the neglect or the failure of one charged to a duty or to a post or to an office in their failure to fulfill in a just and proper manner the duties of an office or of a fiduciary employment. Every violation by a trustee of a duty which equity lays upon him or her, whether willful and fraudulent or done through negligence or arising through mere oversight or forgetfulness, is a breach of duty. All right? Let me go through this list again. Every violation by a trustee of a duty which equity lays upon him or upon her, whether willful or fraudulent, or done through negligence, or arising through mere oversight or forgetfulness, is a breach of duty. A reference of addressing such breaches is expressed by Prophet Noble Ali in his presentment of Caveat Emptor, as made available to all conscious Moorish Americans, period. We want to be fair, balanced, and responsible in our civic duties and social duties of keeping those who govern over our lives in check. This is why constitutions exist in the first instance. And so we review the meaning of the measures for recognizing breaches of trust, of duties, and of offices. The ethical principles are generally universal. Read again Act 1 of the Divine Constitution and Bylaws and draw from it the obvious foresight for the need of constitutional enforcement and the foretelling insight demonstrated by our illustrious Prophet Noble Ali. Divine Constitution and Bylaws, Act 1. The Grand Sheikh and the Chairman of the Moorish Science Temple of America is empowered to make law and enforce laws with the assistance of the Prophet and the Grand Body of the Moorish Holy Temple of Science. The Assistant Grand Sheikh is to assist the Grand Sheikh in all affairs if he lives according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and it is known before the members of the Moorish Holy Temple of Science. All right. Next subject, poignant questions for all Moorish Americans. A. Does the history and the public record related to the government at North America and relative to the documented administration of the Moorish Divine and National Movement of North America show that the Grand Sheiks and chairmen in the Moorish movement have held true to their assigned roles and carried out the Constitution laws? All right, and this is a question for all those who attend temples or who are interacting with temples. Again, does the history and the public record related to the government at North America and the relative to the documented administration of the Moorish Divine and National Movement of North America show that the Grand Sheiks and Chairmen that you all are dealing with, all right, and you all are honoring and giving your dues to, in the Moorish movement, held true to their assigned roles and carried out constitutional laws? Did they do that? All right, and you don't even have to ask my answer. That's for you to answer. All right. Have the alleged public officers operating in the United States and who were put in place to carry out the constitutional laws done so? All right, so has the European done what he was supposed to do? All right, and this is not for me to answer, this is for you to answer. B, have the foresaid administrators maintained the integrity vested in the people's and the members' seats of power as trusted to them? All right, have they maintained the integrity of the seats? All right, refer to the divine warning for the prophet by the nations and measure their words, their works, and their deeds accordingly. C, have the organic Constitution covenant laws been preserved, enforced, supported, and promoted by those who have been assigned to that charge? Or have they been breached, or have they breached their trust? And again, this is not for Nun Nagi to answer, this is for you to answer, the viewers. All right, so we pretty much covered what I wanted to cover for this particular class. I would just like to reiterate, if you copy your answers or if you try to rush through answering this, you're only cheating yourself. All right, because most of the answers that you guys are looking for, you will find if you work through the questions. All right, and if not, then that'll be on you. All right, it's not gonna be on us, because we put this information out here not to be copied and pasted, but to literally to force Moors to think about what it is they're doing. You know, and what, you know, when people talk about writs and they talk about filing stuff, you know, there's some distinctions in there that a lot of people who we know and love seem to have confused. And there's a lot of grand sheiks and sheikesses or whoever out here who are making claims, you know, certain stuff like saying that the Prophet didn't set up a trust, or, you know, that there's no, you know, if there's no trust, then there's no duties, and then they, you know, if there's no duties and no trust, then they can't be called in breach. They can't be in breach. There's no trust, right? So I think that's where a lot of people are coming from with that, trying to say that that's not, you know, that the trust doesn't exist, because it does. I mean, it's obvious that we've been entrusted with something. Now, what people have been doing with that trust, what people have been doing with that authority or power, you know, that's you know, in between. That's neither here nor there. But you still have a lot of people claiming it, and that's part of the problem. That's part of the confusion that people have right now. And hopefully, if you've made it through this class to this point, you realize that that's false. And that they just ain't doing any research, you know, for whatever reason. But then you've got other Moors who completely ignore Consular Court, and for a fact, I know for a fact that their members are still going back and forth dealing with these tribunals, right? And they're not getting much assistance from their temples. The Grand Sheiks are supposed to be assisting more so than anybody else, but you know, a lot of these Grand Sheiks are just passing the buck on to the people, and the people are just, you know, left suffering, unfortunately. And what else? Had some other stuff to cover, but I'm not going to, you know, beat up on a dead horse too much from the soapbox realm. Oh, but another thing I just got to say, man, stop arguing with these trolls, man. Like, y'all end up giving these trolls more fuel for the fire at the end of the day, and it's like they really have no purpose other than to aggravate you, and then you give them room to do more aggravation and to, you know, to cause more confusion. And it's not necessary. So, you know, save yourself the drama and the stress, and, you know, the raised blood pressure, and just don't respond to the trolls if they being trolls. You know what I mean? If there's actually something that's worth responding to, then respond to it. But if they just being trolls, then there's really nothing to respond to. You're killing yourself, really. But some of y'all like to fight. Some of y'all like to argue. Some of y'all like to you know, fuss and go back and forth and make a million videos about, you know, dirty Moors and whoever else. But I would just argue, if you put a little bit more time and energy to this Consular Court demonstration, and a little bit more time and energy into understanding, you know, what it is, you know, your part is to play in this, I think we would be able to find a lot more solutions, you know, rather than arguing with this more, that more, about whatever. I'm not even gonna give any examples. But rather than arguing and you know, bitching and moaning, we could have been got to some solutions. We could have been got remedy on some things. All right. So, you know, take it how you want to. It's, you know, everybody's got free will, and you do it with your time, with what you want to do with it. But don't expect me to stop, or anybody else to stop what they're doing, to help you catch up. Because again, this, you know, everybody got the same 24 hours in a day. What you do with yours is on you. That's your free will. What I do with mine is for me and my free will. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, a lot of the problems that y'all are talking about are going to require a collective or group effort. So you're going to have to let go of a lot of the selfishness that you guys are hanging on to. You know, a lot of the ignorance, you know, and whatever else you hold in the minutia, y'all gotta let that stuff go. All right, the nigga stuff that y'all keep up, that y'all keep wanting to reiterate and kick up, and those of y'all who keep playing into it, I see what y'all are doing, and I see how you're distracting people from the Consular Court demonstration, and you know, you gonna get your just reward. Trust and believe. All of y'all gonna get exactly what you deserve, and it ain't gonna come from me. It's gonna come from Allah. But you know, and for everybody else who, you know, was playing around with this, y'all gonna feel the wrath of Allah too, in a major way pretty soon here. Because I just got a sneaky suspicion after this goes out, everybody's gonna get it all of a sudden, and all of a sudden, you know, some people are gonna realize that certain people wasn't really doing anything towards their best interest. Yeah, they might have had some good information. Yeah, it might have been the best introduction. But when you start talking about going to those next steps, you know, when you start talking really being active, they fall silent, or they keep, you know, rallying the horses around the same stuff. There's not any new thoughts going on. All right. So be mindful of that, you know, and watch out for these shills, man, and these copycats that have no original thought going on between their head. All they're doing is taking the format, copy, paste, taking the answer, copy, paste, and then for the general public who's just coming in, is looking on the outside looking in, they think that they're more, they think that they doing right or whatever, you know, so they follow their bad examples. But then when they get you know, negative results from that bad example, they want to blame, you know, Moorish science. They want to blame all the Moors, you know, in existence. And that's just not the case. You was listening to the wrong person instead of, you know, following your own research and studying and seeing for yourself. You know, follow your own spirit of discernment. All right. So with that, I bid you guys adieu. We're going to finish up with the Moorish American prayer, and then, you know, go on about our life. So let's stand. 5 on the left, 2 on the right, and this time I'm gonna pull it out of the 101s here. So you guys can follow along if you've got the 101 questionnaire. Follow along. So feet 45-degree angle facing east, 5 on the left, 2 on the right. Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my God, and my salvation by night and by day through his holy prophet, Ju Ali. Ameen. 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 Islam Moors, and until next time, peace and love. Islam.